Hey everybody, welcome back to the StealthBuilt Audi Widebody build, and I am Sam Kimmel, and I'm going to walk you through all the steps of what we're doing here today. Well, we're going to begin with the side skirts, which we actually started in the last video, but I need to build the side pieces for those skirts. I've decided to use a piece of hardboard, which is a 1/4 inch particle board, and I'm going to cut that down on my table saw to fit in that little gap so we have something to lay the fiberglass up against. So here you can see I'm just getting my saw set up so that I can run that through and get a nice consistent edge for that insert piece. Since this is more of a personal project, a lot of the time I work on this one alone, and it can get a little fiddly fitting a 4x8 sheet through a table saw by myself, but this one actually went through pretty easy since it's thin and lightweight. Now that I've got it cut to width, I need to measure the length of the longest distance, which is at the top corners here. As you can see, I lined that tape measure up. And then I'm going to cut the angles with this little pair of cordless shears I have. Now these shears are actually meant for steel or aluminum sheet metal, but they work really good for hardboard too. And now that I got the angles cut on that hardboard, I can go ahead and glue it right in. So here you can see I'm just putting some dots of glue to hold it in place, and then we come back with the blue tape and just get everything buttoned up, and that way we can lay fiberglass over this. And now that we got that first side taped up, we're just going to go to the other side of the car and do the exact same thing over. Since I knew both sides were pretty much the same, I went ahead and cut both boards at the same time. And that way all I had to do was go over to the other side and glue and tape this one up, so it made real quick work. So now we're on to prepping for the fiberglass, and I do something that's a little different than I see most people do. There is a aluminum tape that you can use, and it works really well, but it's fairly expensive, and you're fiddling around with the roll of tape and small strips, so you're only able to do just a little bit at a time. What I like to do is use a spray adhesive. This time I'm using 3M Super 77, but any spray adhesive works pretty good. And I can just spray a light coat of it on the framework for these fender flares and go ahead and stick that aluminum foil right down. So the foil actually does two things. One, it kind of seals everything up so that the resin doesn't leak through and end up on the car or on the floor or the tires or anywhere where we don't want it. It also makes removing the fiberglass piece from the car much easier, as aluminum and fiberglass, they really don't stick together. Now that we've got all the aluminum put down, it's time to trim back this front splitter a little bit. I intentionally oversized it when I began making it so that I could trim it back to whatever size the flares ended up being. Now there's a lot of ways you could trim this back. I decided to use my little air saw because it doesn't vibrate the car too bad when I'm doing it, but you could use a jigsaw or anything else. Now you can see that I'm busting out the router, and I'm just routing off that sharp edge, and I figured later I could come back and put a little filler in this and make a nice rounded over edge to whatever profile I like. Even though these are just mock-up wheels, I didn't want to get them too messy, so I used a couple garbage bags just to cover everything up. As I was getting all this taped up, I had a good idea for this side skirt, and so I trimmed out this little section, but you guys are going to have to wait till later to see what I'm going to do with that. It's going to be pretty cool though. But yeah, here's a quick clip of me just trimming it out, hitting it with the sander, and then I'm going to run the router around it with that same exact profile that I used on the front splitter. You'll probably notice too, I like to clean up at the end. It just makes it so much nicer to work on something when it's clean. Since you already saw me do the other side, I'm just going to kind of breeze through this side real quick and get everything taped off with this aluminum foil. And if you guys are enjoying this content, please give me a thumbs up and a like, and don't forget to subscribe, as we're going to be releasing a lot of videos. Also, we are now offering a subscription on Instagram where we're going to show tips and tricks and all the materials we use to get these projects done. So if you're interested in doing this kind of work, that's the best place to go to check it out. And you can find us at StealthBuilt on Instagram. Now that we've got everything taped off, it's time to do some fiberglass work, and I like to get my prep area completely set up with everything I'm going to need right off the bat. That way I'm not looking around for anything while I've got fiberglass resin mixed up. It does have a life expectancy, or as you would say, a pot life. It only lasts so long once you've mixed the hardener in, so it's a good thing to get everything prepped and ready before you start. Alright, so now my table's all set up with all the things I need, and it's right next to where I'm going to be working, and it's time to tear up some fiberglass and get ready to do the layup. I know about the size pieces that I can easily manage, so I tear it up into that size, and then I kind of just give you a little short walk around to show you kind of how my area is set up. I want everything that I need to be within reach. Safety first, everybody. Don't forget when working with any kind of material like this that it's always good to read the manufacturer's instructions, directions, and all your SDS safety information. You'll want to wear appropriate clothing, gloves, glasses, and anything the manufacturer suggests. All of my videos are for entertainment only. So I want you to know that when you're working with anything, it is your responsibility to keep yourself safe. All right, so now that we've got everything mixed, it's time to start doing the layup, and you can see here that I'm actually wetting out the pieces on the cardboard on my table and then transferring them onto the car. Here you can see I'm trimming the little fender edge off, and before this fiberglass is fully hardened, it's one of the best times to work with it. So I'm going to go back through with a razor knife and just clean up any spots that are sticking up or anything hanging over the edge that I would have to later cut off with a real saw or, sand off. This just makes it a little bit quicker and easier while it's still not 100% hardened. Alright, so now let's continue the layup. I'm going to work my way down the back side of the fender and onto the side skirt. And then I'm just going to work my way down the entire side of the car, and not necessarily any order. I just figured I'd start at the front and work my way to the back. So I've sped this up quite a bit since you kind of get the idea of what we're doing here. And I'm just working my way all the way around this back fender and doing underneath the back section there where I know that I'm going to be able to see it, and just kind of filling in every little bit that I need with the door open. And now that we've done all that, it's time to add some fiberglass to this little door blade. And anybody that knows this build so far probably understands that this is just a base for what we're going to use later to make a mold. So I'm going to lay glass over all of this. I'm not too worried about it being absolutely perfect, as I'm going to come back and do some body work to this, and then we will take a mold off of these pieces, and then we will use that mold to make new parts that we'll put on the car. And that way, if any of the car ever gets damaged, we have, molds that we can remake the parts. And, we could also reproduce this if somebody wanted to buy them in the future. A lot of people have asked if I'm going to reproduce this kit, but I'll tell you the biggest thing, this is a pretty extreme wide body. It's over 8 inches wider per side, and so there is a lot of modifications that it takes to do this. It's not really your typical bolt-on kit that you would find on, eBay or somewhere online. This is a pretty custom kit, and it would take a lot of modification to get your car to actually work with these pieces. Well, that's pretty much it for the fiberglass work on the wide body at this point. As you know, if you've been following on Instagram or TikTok, we have changed some things, and I'll be updating this as we go. So stay tuned for more videos, and I hope you enjoy a couple stills of the car. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us for exclusive content, how-tos, and what products we use, along with a lot of other cool stuff on Instagram at StealthBuilt. We'll see you again on the next one.